Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Kate. I work with the Alberta Environmental Farm Plan Program that's delivered through the organization ERICA. And today we're here for the third and final webinar of the Alberta Invasive Species webinar series that we've been hosting. So today we have George Bloom, but before we get started, just as we've done with the other ones, I'll give a quick overview about the Environmental Farm Plan Program. So just a quick overview of what this program is. So it's a free and voluntary whole farm self-assessment. So it's meant to help you identify environmental risks on your farm, help you make a plan to mitigate those risks. And then it's a valid plan for 10 years. So you renew every 10 years or whenever a big change happens on your farm, that's usually our recommendation to come in, or you can just come in and renew it periodically as well. So it's based off of things like soil and site characteristics, topography of your land, where and what your water looks like on your farm, your management practices, and then, of course, potential sources of contamination too. So why complete an environmental farm plan? So we've got the education and awareness first and foremost. So we're here to help you learn more about the land that you're managing and be a better steward of the land. It also can help reduce costs and increase efficiency and profit for your farm. It's another way to meet global sustainable sourcing, as well as it can leave your farm in a good shape for the next generation. Although we say education and awareness is our primary goal, I recognize there's a lot of reasons other people are requiring EFPs, like these grant funding programs, the Sustainable Canadian Ag Partnership, some ALICE programs, Agri-Invest for some folks who meet a certain threshold, and more. So more information about how to get started if you don't already have a plan. So you could scan the QR code on the screen or visit our website and then register for your account. And through that registration process, you'll be paired with a local technician to help you through as little or as much as you need for support. They're here to help. And then anything that you put into the plan, any information that you share, it's strictly confidential between you and that technician. So just to kind of keep that in mind as well. And then if you have any questions, if you've got a contact with your technician already, you can reach out to them. Or if you're not quite at that stage, we have our general inquiries, email and phone number, or our program staff that you can get a hold of. So that being said, our quick overview is done with that, and I will stop sharing and then introduce George. So George brings more than 20 years of public service experience working across provincial and municipal programs in the invasive species, environmental initiatives, and legislation compliance. His background includes everything from field operations to resource planning, reflecting a steady commitment to practical solutions. He values continuous learning and collaboration outside of the Alberta Invasive Species Council's important and interesting work. George enjoys exploring Alberta's outdoors, always ready for the next good story. All right, so take it away, George, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. I always like the opportunity to come here. I have done a few in-person events lately, so bear with me through the digital one. And I'm really hoping the Amazon guy doesn't show up because my dog will make her presence quite known. So if anybody has any questions, I think Kate can kind of monitor and we can kind of run through that. So I'm with the Alberta Invasive Species Council today, and we were just going to talk about a few things. So as you can see, I don't know if you're familiar or not with the Alberta Invasive Species Council, but they just got some new branding. So this is our new brand. It incorporates the province of Alberta and some recognizable species in there. And we quite like those new colors. We even got a new sweater with it. So, you know, lots of great benefits to being involved with the Alberta Invasive Species Council. Here's kind of my outline. I just wanted to talk about ASIC, of course, and then the resources it has. And then as we have time, we can go through maybe some of the reasons why the Alberta Invasive Species Council exists, right? So um, Alberta is a growing and facing lots of challenges. We have a lot of new construction, a lot of new roads. It's very busy. It's the busiest it's ever been, right? Every day is busier than the day before. So we keep getting a lot of these new pressures, and it's hard to stay on track with all of them because there's so many different things come so many different ways. So, Alberta, we already have laws like the Weed Control Act, the Ag Pest Act, Soil Conservation Act to manage species we know about, but a lot of these invaders keep arriving or spreading from nearby regions. Our neighbors, we're always at risk from travel, and we're a risk to our neighbors as well, right? So it's good for us to keep a lot of these best practices. Um, in Saskatchewan and Montana, they've all reported invasive plants and insects and diseases that are not yet, regulated in Alberta. So Alberta Invasive Species Council likes to try and stay ahead of the task, and we have a lot of great resources for all this kind of stuff in there. So I'll just go on to the next slide. So about us, you can see, our mandates about increasing awareness and in educating about the destructive impacts of invasive species. Um, we like to serve as a respectable and credible information and resource for invasive species in Alberta. And we're always very wanting to empower people to take action and make steps, because it's such a big problem, without everybody on board doing their part, it's really challenging. And of course, we love the foster partnerships, we love working with other people. I mean, EFP techs are kind of like one of the best people we could talk to, I think. You guys have plugged into so many different things already, right? So, I mean, this is one of the slides we always show in any presentation. Invasive species are a huge threat economically, conservationally. There's so many big problems, and you probably never get ahead of it, but we can mitigate it, right? And I have a video about biocontrol from the Waldron coming up. I'd like to show everyone, and it's all part of the all part of the big whole picture, right? There's so many different programs coming together, which leads us into some of these new programs here. So these CD3 units are waterless boat washing stations, to stop aquatic invasives, and they're doing a lot of eDNA monitoring now to look for a lot of different invasives. Like what a great way to survey for, a simple presence or absence, is to just take a look at that. And then the tank storybook is coming along, which is actually super cool. Um, and that's going to be going obviously geared towards kids and stuff, but it's another way to get the messaging across to people, and it's such a challenging thing to do, right? So one of the best things about the AISC, and this is, from the very beginning with the group, the Alberta Invasive Species Council, they started doing that because, there was a gap, specifically in 2010 when they amended the Weed Act. There was a bunch of new invasive species that nobody really had, uh, an Alberta specific overview and information fact sheet on. So there's over 100, I'm thinking almost pushing 200 of these now, and they're just continuously being updated, right? So, and that was back in, I think, 2006 when it was the Alberta Invasive Plant Council. And then the name was changed in 2013 to have a broader scope, right? So um, they've been working at it ever since. And again, these fact sheets are great. They're right on the website there, and what a great resource. Another great one they did was this Aquatic Invasive Species Pocket Guide. I'm not sure if anybody's seen this one before, but it's a really good one too. It's just great formatting, it's nice and small, pops in your book. And then of course the invasive plants of Alberta. So this is the picture of the fourth edition right now. The fifth edition will be being printed soon, and if you're not a subscriber to the Alberta Invasive Species Council newsletter or the social media They're doing a call out to do a wholesale print on this book right now, just for the updates. And if anybody's interested in that, you can follow up with the website and newsletter and find some more information there. One of the things we always work with here is the EDSMap database. So you can query a lot of different things. It really helps to get like a big, broad picture if people start, you know, reporting things, right? Which is great, especially on more common areas. Maybe people aren't looking, right? And I've responded to a bunch of these too, and I was like, wow, that's really there. Who knew, right? Like you never know what you're gonna find. For example, some was it pale yellow iris growing in a municipal storm pond. And honestly, it looked kind of planted to me. So I think it was there on purpose, but somebody saw it and reported it. And, that probably saved somebody a lot of time, right? So we always talk about that early detection, rapid response kind of thing, right? So here's another, I apologize. This picture got blurred out a little bit, but there's a reprint of this one coming up as well. And pretty much every province or a lot of groups will have this as well, which is such a great resource. I was just did the Red Deer, Edmonton, and Calgary boat outdoor hunting shows, and it was a very specific set of people that were picking up this brochure at those shows. So it was great to see such diversity, and everybody comes to the AISC booth, and some people are really focused in on that wild boar, right? Because the wild boar regulations just changed, and some people are really focused on the plants or the goldfish, and so everybody kind of has their thing, right? So this is a great resource, just easy printable, new ones coming out right away. So here's another kind of cool thing Alberta Invasive Species Council is doing as well, is the educational resources here. They have just a whole slew of different ones here. I just took a couple of screenshots here, but you can kind of see the different parts they're going in. And I know that they're working on some e-learning stuff as well. And there's a whole schwack of like webinar-based stuff on the website as well. Trivia games, and then you can kind of see in the bottom corner here some of the campaigns that we're working on, right? So, if it's something you want to do, maybe a classroom ag program or something like that, I mean, you can always take a look at through that and go through that. So here's one of the campaigns. I'm actually wearing one of the shirts. It's Protect Our Waters, and I think it's a really cool one. So everybody relies on water, right? And I mean, Alberta, we only have so much water in this corridor, and so there's, I'm preaching to the choir to the EFP people here, right? We all know why we want to take care of water, and for me, I want to be able to go fishing, and I'm going to digress for a minute here. So at the boat show, I was talking to a fellow, and we got this big Prussian carp display, right? And he goes, "What is that?" And I go, "Oh, that's a Prussian carp." He goes, "Looks like a goldfish." I'm like, "Well, yeah, it is kind of." And I said to him, "There have been found in the irrigation canals, and they can overlive in the mud." One of the irrigation guys was telling me, and he says to me, "That makes so much sense." He goes, "I walk my dogs by the canal all the time, and I'm always seeing coyotes digging in the mud." And so he figures that the coyotes are digging in the mud, getting some frozen fish fillets. So my point being, I don't want a bunch of carp because I want to go fly fishing for trout, right? Like that's what I want. I don't want to go and eat a carp. That's not good. And the Alberta government has, stepped it up too with the response they have, interestingly at the boat inspection, and you guys may have heard this a million times, but $4,200 for not stopping now, that is, I'm going to be stopping. And the messaging they're having now for a lot of the boat inspections, I believe, is if it floats, it's a boat. So even, paddle boards, I guess technically a water air mattress could even be something that the kids are playing with in the beach. And the potential is there for these invaders to attach themselves or get in the water. And maybe it's a super fun weekend and you're swimming in a couple different lakes. Who knows, right? So I just saw that Parks Canada has put in a whole bunch of restrictions on Lake Louise and a bunch of other ones there. So, it's people are really taking this stuff seriously. It has some big implications. So, some of our other current funded projects are including this invasive plant seed production thing. I believe it's like a suction-based seed collector, destroyer, and then a tree pest guide with the e-learning course will be coming out in the future. Working on the big biocontrol research. So you can see they've been raising a bunch of money for that, right? And then we're always developing new campaigns for invasive plants and other species. But here's the big one, is the wildflowers, not weeds messaging. If you were at the AISC conference, we broke out a button maker and we had a bunch of cool like buttons we were making. And this picture is probably self-explanatory to this crew, but wildflowers, not weeds, right? And I'm not slamming Fernie here at all. I love Fernie, probably more than most people. But people don't understand, right? They don't see the ecological monoculture that we see here, right? What is this? Just tall buttercup and daisy? Like, that's no forage value. There's no habitat there. It's just, well, there might be habitat one day if there's a biocontrol good enough out there, right? But until then, there's not much going on there. And buttercup is certainly not very palatable, right? Same with the daisies. So the wildflowers, not weeds, they're working on some messaging with that. You'll be seeing that coming. It's definitely got a really cool theme to it. And that is an information gap I find that the public is missing is people, a kid can name every character from SpongeBob, but they can't name, what they've been walking on across their lawn or through the park, right? So that's, I think there's a lot of value to that reconnection. So. All right, so leading into the biocontrol thing here, right? So biocontrols, I'm sure you guys are fairly familiar with that terminology, but basically we're trying to use nature to deal with nature, right? So it's not an eradication tool, it's another tool in the toolbox in your integrated pest management strategies, right? Now, I do have a video I would like to show you guys about the Waldron on this, and it's interesting because it comes at it at a few different angles. Specifically for the leafy spurge beetle here, which Alberta Invasive Species Council does provide. I believe the pricing for that is $900, and they do deliver and provide some value in addition to just having the bugs as well. Paige is the one to follow up with that on the website, but of course at the end we can talk about questions on that. So. Yeah, let's take a look here. Hopefully that sounds not too bad for you guys.
The Waldron Ranch is 65,000 acres, so 101 square miles, and we run about 13,000 head of cattle through the year. We strive to graze 10 months of the year, so it's entirely a grass grazing operation. We don't do any farming, we don't even own a tractor. So if the cattle or the sheep can't eat it, it's kind of no interest to us. So because the grass is our main asset on this ranch, we really try to look after it as careful as we can. When I started in 2008 and I looked over the ranch, this behind me that you can see up the valley here was as yellow as a canola field. And there's some pictures circulating here and you can see. And those pictures that I have there aren't the worst of it. So they had been spraying for 40 years, trying to control it, trying to eradicate it. And they were spending between $13,000 and $15,000 a year spraying it. And those pictures show the results. Still look like a canola field. So you couldn't blame them for not trying. They just weren't using the right tools. So I think it was about 2009 or 2010, the MDs of Ranchland and Pincher Creek pitched in together, and they sent myself and the chairman of the board of the Waldron to a weed symposium in Montana. And there we learned what they had found over the years with grazing sheep and control of the leafy spurge. So we come back and began steps to implement it. Of course, they were all four-generation cattle producers and hated sheep. Didn't know why they hated sheep, but Grandpa hated sheep, so they hated sheep. So the first rule was they didn't want it grazed right to the linoleum to combat these weeds. So we got involved with the local Hutterite colony because they needed more pasture for their sheep. And we made a deal with them, and they pay us 20 cents a day per ewe, and we graze their sheep here on our land, and we herd them and we provide salt for the sheep. So for them, it's a great deal because they're rid of their sheep for 3 months of the year, and they have this available pasture so they can increase their sheep flock. For us, the rent that we get from the sheep grazing here pays for the herders, and we usually profit between $1,500 and $1,800 a year. Now that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but just think, we were spending $13,000 to $15,000 a year on spray and had very little control of what was going on. So basically what we did is we turned a liability into an asset. And by grazing the sheep and bringing them in and grazing the leafy spurge, and the leafy spurge is still here, and it probably will always be here because we have never figured out a way to eradicate it yet. But part of the control program is also the flea beetles. I can never remember their name, so it doesn't really matter, but they're little beetles that prey on the leafy spurge. And the adults, they eat on the leaves and the upper part of the plant, and then they lay their larvae in the root system, and the larvae go down into the root system and weaken the plant. The combination of the sheep grazing it and the spurge beetles has really made a huge difference for us. Because as you can see, looking up the valley here, you can hardly see it. It's there, but the sheep continually selectively graze all the blooms off of it. And then the plant has to send a new shoot up from the root system to bloom again, and the sheep get that one. And so they weaken the plant, and that helps the beetles. Another way the beetles, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship between the beetles and the sheep, because the beetles are they call them flea beetles because they jump like fleas. They're very nervous. So if you see a plant with a bunch of beetles on it and you go and you poke it, they all jump off and hide in the grass. So when the sheep are grazing through, the beetles inadvertently get tangled in their wool, and they might ride the sheep for 200 or 300 yards, and then they jump off or fall off or whatever, but it gets spread. And so all through this valley, all the way up through here, right to our south buildings, those beetles have spread the whole way because they ride the sheep. So, I mean, for us, it's economically beneficial. We've also made great steps to controlling, not eradicating, but controlling this noxious weed, because it is a bad one. And it would go right across this whole country if it wasn't controlled. In South and North Dakota, it got so bad in some areas that the cattlemen turned the the leased land back to the county. The county turned it back to the state, and the state turned it back to the federal government because nobody wanted to deal with it. It got so out of control, they couldn't deal with it. It's very similar to knapweed in Montana or British Columbia. And I lived in British Columbia for 20 years, and I've seen what can happen to good prime native grassland if weeds are not controlled. So I was very adamant that we had to somehow get a control of this leafy spurge. And I think we've got a pretty good control on it. The sheep, it takes a different level of management. We have, through the years, we've tried a lot of things, and actually the sheep are way easier to manage than the herders. And I told them, look, it didn't get here in a day, and it's not going to leave in a day. So as long as we are making progress and we're controlling it, we're good.
Perfect. So I just want to touch off on the biocontrol there again. So with the Alberta Invasive Species Council, you know, they've been working on that. And the biocontrol program in Alberta started in 2001 as a collaboration between Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and 7 different agricultural fieldmen in southern Alberta. So they were drawing on over 50 years of research screening and establishing specialist biocontrol agents for invasive plants. The initial invasive plants targeted was leafy spurge, as you can see at the Waldron Ranch there. Isn't that beautiful at the Waldron there? Man, I love that place. And just to jump back on that, they said the beetles were traveling on the sheep up and down, so the beetles are cowboys too. What a world. And so since 2001, the program has expanded to include additional targets such as houndstong, Dalmatian toadflax, knapweeds, and has continued to build on the AAFC research into the new biocontrol agents that they're working on. And, you know, I'm pretty excited they're talking about a tansy, common tansy one. So that would be really great to have that. With ongoing support from stakeholders and coordination by ASIC and research expertise from the AAFC, the program has grown from the initial group to collaborate with over 45 different organizations throughout Alberta. Together, this partnership has now released and monitored biocontrol agents at over 1,700 locations, and monitoring data collected by the program is reported back to AAFC to improve the implementation of future biocontrol agents, which is super cool. So for my next section here, I thought I would just give you guys a quick overview of some of these species that are not yet established in Alberta, but they are in our neighboring jurisdictions here, right? So a lot of these have herbicide resistance, you know, so that makes IPM strategies efficient as well here. So as you can see, alkali Swainson pea is a perennial legume up on the screen there. From the pea family, native to Asia, it's thought to have been introduced either as a contaminant in alfalfa seed, or they actually planted it for soil stabilization purposes. The species propagates through seeds and vegetative means, with flowering occurring from May to July. Mature specimens may exhibit either herbaceous or shrubby characteristics, right? So, and there's not a whole lot of things that are going to look like that, right? Moving forward, you know, looking at the silhouette here, it's quite distinct. I mean, there's a few things that will look similar. I mean, you know, some things that come to mind for me in this area, you know, some various milk vetches or Jacob ladders are going to be a little smaller and things like that. Alfalfa, Sicer milk vetch is just everywhere now too, right? So we see that pretty far. Here is kind of its distribution here. So you can see Saskatchewan, Montana. So it's very likely going to come in through here. So if we have any farmers and ranchers, these are the ones that are super scary. This Palmer amaranth, water hemp, they are just like next level nasty here. So we put up, you're going to see this picture a couple times. This is just such a great picture. It came from Ontario. You can see the peyotal leaf stalk here on Palmer amaranth is so long, right, compared to the rest of them. So it's one of the telltale signs on how to do that. So, you know, one of the things that they said, you know, it's not red root pigweed because the stem of red root pigweed is covered in dense short hairs and quite red too, right? Palmer amaranth stem is smooth and hairless, and the leaf stalk of red root pigweed is significantly shorter, right? So They do kind of look very similar, I think, from a distance here, but once you kind of dial in on the details, that's where you're going to find the difference, right? So, you know, one of the main issues with the Palmer amaranth, which is in Ontario and I think in Manitoba a little bit as well, it is herbicide resistance to 9 different groups, right? So group 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 14, 27, and modes of action as well, right? So there's quite problems here. And one of the government publications, they said, you know, they expect this Palmer amaranth and tall water hemp to be coming into Alberta and Saskatchewan pretty quick. So I do kind of have some videos on this one, but I don't think we really need to see that. It's too risky. So here's that picture again, right? So just burn that one in your memory here. So here's another pigweed, tall water hemp. So it grows best in open areas with at least partial sun and moist to wet areas. You know, obviously along water bodies, it is called tall water hemp, right? So likes disturbed areas, including, you know, anything from roadsides to crop fields, gardens, tall water hemps. You know, all these pigweeds are male and female dioecious plants, right? So if you have to do some hand roguing, you know, maybe you just want to pull the females and get rid of that seed bank, right? So that's one strategy you can look at. And you know, because it does have that life form, that's why it is so resistant to herbicide, because it, you know, will produce 1 million seeds in almost no time at all, right? One plant could actually produce 1 million seeds. So it's pretty significant. You know, people are pretty worried about this stuff, right? So you can see it has a lot of resistance as well. This very significant problematic weed in the Midwest states, specifically in corn and soybean crop production cycles. And it's documented that it may also have allopathic effects. So it's changing the ground chemistry. So just its own species can grow in a way there. So I think there's some more information forthcoming on that. And, you know, here's a few more photos of it, right? So I'm a very visual person, right? So, you know, a lot of different photos really helps me. And we're going to see these things in all these different stages too, right? For those of us who are going out and coming around and stuff too. So here's another one, the African rue, right? So this one has been an ASIC fact sheet for quite a long time, but it did just make it to the Alberta Weed Control list, right? The fact sheet on this one is actually kind of insane. It's not a very controllable weed at all. So no registered herbicides. You know, generally, if you have a prohibited noxious weed, it is difficult to have a herbicide on that because it is probably not very common. And so the chem companies haven't put in a lot of work to get that registered and such. So apparently mowing and burning are not really effective. And if you want to hand rogue this stuff, you need to get all the roots because it is just a really, really, really tough plant. And you can see some more details, kind of see how you would see that one a little bit further out there. Yeah, just a couple more pictures there. Like I said, very visual learner here. So I'm gonna I'll briefly touch on this one. So there was a elm seed bug. You guys are probably quite familiar with what we have is the box elder bugs that come in, and you know, not really a crop or environmental issue too much, but certainly an aesthetic issue, right, for people. And they don't like 600 million of these things crawling on their walls, right? And I don't blame them. It's kind of nasty. So, and apparently, they're been found in BC in the Okanagan. So. These box elder bugs are quite a bit bigger. They're double, I think. Yeah, oh, yeah, there we go. Up to 13 mils, and these ones are about up to 6. But we'll jump over that one. This is the one we want to talk about, especially for our producers in Alberta. This is the capra beetle, and so the capra beetle is it is so destructive. It's banned in over 100 countries. They say that it is the Beetlejuice of stored grain. And if you say its name 3 times, your export license disappears. It grows fast when conditions are warm. A single female can lay around 50 to 100 eggs. And in the initial heat at 35 degrees Celsius, if you go just a few generations, the 4th generation, under optimal conditions, the population would be over 24 million from just one bug, right? And so this is a huge infestation in cereals and grains, and so we don't want that one. So it does. People are very serious about this one. Here's kind of what it looks like in its juvenile forms. And the government of Canada has, well, I'll show you the next map for it, but here's historic range and accumulated, right? So generally from around this area and moving. So you can see a little bit in the States here, and hopefully we just never get that one, right? We got enough problems in Alberta. We don't need it anymore, right? So if you wanted to find more about the Capra beetle, I would suggest taking a look. And if you come across this video, it's kind of hilarious. We'll come back to that one, and we'll see that one. So another big one out east here is we have this box tree moth. So this one is it is more of a threat to our ornamental gardening industries. So the box tree moth defoliates shrubs, right? And it's eating them, and in caterpillar form. You often won't see the moth form. It's flies at night like all moths do. So we're not really out scouting for moths, right? And the caterpillars where you're going to see the damage, right? So I wasn't terribly familiar with these box shrubs and stuff, but apparently that's what they make all those mazes and stuff out of, like the fancy Victorian garden mazes. So if you needed to get out, maybe bring some of those in your pocket or something. So yeah, pretty interesting. There's all these different species coming at us from all different angles. You just never know what's coming up. I have This one is actually really specific to Alberta, right? So they have found this in Alberta now. So this is the house mosquito. And the reason they're calling it the house mosquito is this one, it really likes to lay its eggs in standing water, especially in like an urban environment, like, any kind of containers, old tires, anything that stores that kind of water, right? And so the Culex pipensis. I'm so terrible at the Latin. I apologize for that. So it's not just surviving in Alberta, it's thriving, right? So it prefers warm, dry conditions and is now appearing earlier in the season across more neighborhoods. It breeds close to where people live. So if we take simple steps like emptying and refreshing outdoor water containers a few times a week, say for like your dog bowl or something, you want to do that. And there's potential for West Nile virus with this one here. So I'm not going to lie, mosquito identification definitely a little bit outside of my scope here. And Alberta, has close, I think, to 30 different mosquito species that come out at all different times of the year as well. I mean, obviously, there's probably some more overlap, but like I said, not my area of expertise. But I do think it is a little frightening that West Nile could be back on the table. I feel like we have enough problems, like I said. And here's the Phragmites, right? Invasive Phragmites just made it to the weed control list as a prohibited noxious as well, right? So 2 to 5 meters tall, drooping heads, there's not going to be much else that you're going to misidentify this with. You see grass that grows twice as high of you, that's going to be a problem, right? You're going to see that. And, just take a look here how it goes, right? And here's a picture of a site actually that I saw. So this is the Phragmites on this property here, and you can see there is a ditch there. So it is about 4 feet. And that is 2 years into a drought, that stuff still got to 4 feet. So I thought it's really important, I think, that everybody has their eyes out for Phragmites because this is one of the winnable ones, I do believe. There's a lot of people taking this quite seriously, and there's some great products out there that they can control it with too, right? So We don't want that one. And anybody who's been out east, Ontario, Quebec East, it is in every water body, every draw. Like, if we can remove establishment from that, that would be great. Here's my favorite pretty one, flowering rush, right? A lot of you may be familiar with that already. I believe this is the picture from Isle Lake where they had the infestation. I actually went kayaking this lake one time, and it was just full of dead fish and flowering rush. It was not a nice time. I think I made it about 10 minutes before I brought my boat back to shore. So you can see kind of where flowering rush has been identified. We do know, up here, and this looks like quite the spot. So this must be the Bizano Dam on, right? So that's a really interesting one. Flowering rush lookalikes, when in flower, there's not a whole lot that looks like that. That is a very unique one, but some of the rushes and reeds, outside of flower, you're going to want to check that, right? Do y'all remember how'd it go? Rushes are round, sedges have edges, grasses have nodes all the way to the ground or something. So that's, another one. This one's near and dear to my heart. Purple loosestrife. This is, I think, my favorite plant to look for because you get to go on a boat sometimes, right? So what a beautiful plant, grows big and strong, square stems, not a whole lot looks like it. There's few things here and there. I'll just jump to this one here. So you can see this. This is willow herb right here. So a lot of people might get that one mixed up with fireweed or potentially purple loosestrife, right? So willow herb, very small, minute flowers, right? Just at the tips. And obviously the square stems is the giveaway for purple loosestrife there, right? So Prussian carp. I heard a Prussian carp story there. So, like it's established, it's everywhere, it's food for coyotes, and hopefully one day, something will take that out. And of course, no shortage of invasive fish, right? So, kind of getting through here a little bit, but you can see like there's this one was actually on Reddit before it hit the news. I remember seeing that one, the moss balls in the pet store. And again, so many things coming at us at so many different angles, right? All the time. So I just, I want to leave 5 minutes here. So I'll just briefly cut off on the summary here. Thanks for listening to me, you guys. I am so sorry about that video thing. That of course that happened. So I apologize. Um, yeah, any questions you have? I think Kate can pass them on here, and yeah, sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. You can put them in the chat as well, whatever makes you most comfortable. So I guess maybe I can kick it off with one question. So if you were giving your best piece of advice to a producer trying to deal with invasives in Alberta, what would your, I guess, best advice be for them?
Oh, well, I mean, start from the bottom up, right? You want to do an early detection, rapid response, and you need that positive ID, right? Like if you don't identify it correctly, you're not going to be effective with working on its life cycle, right? Strategy for integrated pest management. So, and there's going to be a lot of restrictions too, right? If you're using chemical, there's going to be restrictions against water. There's going to be, the land use restrictions. There's all kinds of things like that. Yeah, I would say you need that proper ID and then the control at the proper time, right? Like, I just on the way out of town this morning, or the other day, gophers, right? So now's the time to get the gophers. You want to get all your plants as early as possible, and yeah, proper ID is the big one. And if you don't know, just reach out. There's so many excited people who want to just help, right? Like Alberta Invasive Species Council, pumping our horn a little bit, but there's some really effective and smart people in that group, plus your local ag fieldmen, municipalities, environment. There's a lot of good groups out there. Alberta Native Plant Council. There's, lots of people want to help, right? So,
Awesome. Our next question in the chat is from Nancy. So what would you suggest for getting rid of common tansy in a pasture?
Okay, well, common tansy is a really tough one, right? It has like a woody stem, and if it's really well established, it's going to be hard to remove. You're going to have a huge seed bank. Those seeds are adapted to spring runoff. So everything kind of falls over the winter, and then when the snow melts, all that seed gets deposited, and it's a perennial, right? So you're not going to be having much luck, I think, with hand removal. That's going to be quite difficult, especially the size. If you got a few plants, oh yeah, absolutely. But I think once you get in the big one, I would definitely reach out to well, like I said, that biocontrol is hopefully coming out in the next few years for common tansy. But again, not an eradication strategy, part of the integrated pest management. And I would say chemical control is probably your best bet. And you're going to want to do that nice and early in the spring, right? Before, like, I think in pasture, you want to reach out to, there's some good products out there. But I don't want to seem like I'm plugging them, right? So maybe reach out to your ag fieldman or chem company. There is the Alberta Crop Protection Blue Book, right? That's a great resource as well. And if you open up that as a PDF, it's a free PDF. You just type in Blue Book and you can control F, control find, kind of look what you're looking for, right? So if you hit common tansy, that's a quick way to kind of find out one thing in there. So yep. Again, hopefully that biocontrol comes out soon because we need that along the rivers and stuff where we can't spray, right? So sorry, I can help you more.
Our next question is from Sarah. Is there any Prussian carp near Red Deer? She couldn't tell with the map.
Okay, well, I'm not specifically sure in Red Deer. I would absolutely imagine so. They're prolific down south here. I'm in the Bow River Basin and they are everywhere, right? So I would take a look at the Alberta Invasive Species Council does have a fact sheet on that one. I do think you can see in that one, and it does talk about that. Oh, they are nice.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jenna. Our other question here, again from Sarah, what specific weeds do sheep target that cattle avoid? So that are present in Alberta.
Well, I mean, we were talking to the Waldron guy there. The leafy spurge is kind of the big bet right there for that one. So you really have to kind of leafy spurge is the big one. I can't think off the top of my head about another one, but yeah. There's a great targeted grazing website. Maybe I can get some information to Kate with some of this stuff, and I can get you that study. There was a summary of targeted grazing, and it talked about a bunch of different species and a bunch of different animals that were like more suited to one's particular species and season. But the takeaway for that is, invasive species take time to manage, especially if you're going to do targeted grazing. It's going to be multiple years, right, before you kind of see any difference. But absolutely possible. I think that that's a great way to do it. And if you do have great success with something like that, the Alberta Invasive Species Council would absolutely love to see that. Some photos, a little story. We love success stories like that. Please share your successes. It's so important to everyone else too to hear that, right? So.
Okay. So there's a comment here, just thanks for the resource links. And then another one, I was curious what the invaded pasture in the Waldron Ranch video was used before the sheep started grazing.
Beef. 13,000 head at the Waldron.
Okay. That's all the questions in the chat here. Oh, we've got another one. So Johnny says, I'm about to take the applicator certification test. Any advice?
Buckle up. That test is kind of brutal. They just changed it though. It used to be 80% you had to get to pass. It's 70% now. So I would take the tutorial if you're new to it. There's a 4-day tutorial at Olds or Lakeland. I think there's even like a webinar one. And be careful. I would say, probably the hardest designation is the ag one. And depending what you're doing, you may need that ag one or landscape or industrial. But oh, landscape, yeah, okay, that one's not a piece of cake either. But all of these are meant to be done by the average person with the average focus and study, right? Like if you can do it, just hammer down, study it, just live and breathe it. You'll be fine. Everybody can pass this stuff. What one person can do, another can do, right? I learned that from Sean Connery in The Edge when he killed the bear.
Okay, so if there's any other questions, oh, another one from Sarah. Is there an email for you, George, that we can reach out to so we can get more?
I'll supply Kate with something here.
Okay. So with that in mind, I have a quick little exit survey for folks who attended. If you want to do that, I'm going to launch it now and it should show up on your screen. But just as we're kind of wrapping up here, this webinar was recorded. So it will be posted at a later date. And then on that comment about the email and other resources and stuff, I will be reaching out to everyone who registered for the webinar with the recording, and then as we mentioned, some of these other things as well. So keep an eye out for that with the email address that you registered for this meeting with. But other than that, thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, George, for being here and participating. But otherwise, have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.